I think it's really important in everybody's daily life, and we just don't recognize it.
I think everybody takes it for granted.
Well, I guess I don't think about it very often, but I do think it's extremely important for us to have some set of standards.
Oh, I would be in jail all the time if it was not some guaranteed rights, because I tend to be spontaneous and a little bit of a rebel.
In my daily life, I would have to say I think about it a lot. Just because as a Black woman who is very opinionated, I tend to speak my mind a lot, and a lot of people don't like that. However, I really like to use the Constitution back on them.
Well, back to the First Amendment. Here I am sitting expressing on opinions about the Second Amendment, for instance, which are not popular. And I'm not going to be thrown in jail for it. And there are countries on the crust of this planet where people walk in fear.
More important than I realize on a daily basis. And I think I gain that perspective by reading about what people that aren't citizens of the United States have to go through to live in a way that I take for granted on a daily basis.
You know, I would say it's not something that I think about on a regular basis, but I have lived overseas, and it's interesting the things that you take for granted.
And you know what? It's even people within the United States also don't necessarily get everything that's outlined in the Constitution all the time.
From what you hear in the news, it doesn't sound like very many other people, including senators, representatives, presidents, and members of the cabinet, pay much attention to the articles of the Constitution, even though they swear an oath to uphold the Constitution.
There's still a lot of racism, a lot of bad things still that it says we do not do, but I feel like we do still do.
It's the way that the Supreme Court is currently interpreting and making decisions. Seems to me that the Constitution is not being treated as a living document, but rather as a set in stone.
So I think democracy fails if it's not participatory.
A right to participate in government.
So the Constitution and the lack of certain amendments impact my life.
I mean, there's so much in here that is surprising in that end. I take it for granted. There are things in here that talk about my person and my property rights and all of the things that I grew up with that I think, oh, well, of course. And no, they're codified here.
I'm a town councilor, so it affects what we do there. Affects a lot of what we do there.
I, like many Americans, I think take it for granted, unfortunately, but it impacts everything we do, everything we go in this country, all our activities.
As the bedrock of our country, I think they're important.
I think it's the bedrock. I mean, our daily life exists. The way our daily life exists is entirely based on this. I mean, we just take it for granted. So I think if someone says, oh, it doesn't affect my daily life, I think they're just taking it for granted. And I think, we do. And it's only when it's threatened that we stop being concerned.
It is what it is, and we're glad that we have it. But if you didn't have it, you'd probably be really bummed out.
Very important. How important? I mean, I live here in the United States. How much more important can it be?
I know it affects me, but I don't feel like it affects me.
I feel like it affects me, but it doesn't affect me. Just mainly because I'm just personally a person to stay out of trouble, just do what I have to do and, go on about my business. But, yeah.
It's not important to me in my day-to-day because it doesn't represent who I am and how I interact with other people, how I am compared to another person. We're not equal. Women aren't equal to men. Brown and black folks, all sorts of races outside white, are not equal to white. And that is not listed or interpreted under any 27 rules here.
There's parts of it I believe in and parts of it that I don't. I think until we're all equal and free, it's not my favorite.
Well, I don't think our lives would be anything like they are now if we didn't have a constitution that established some of our rights and freedoms.
This is the first time I have seen all of these amendments.
I haven't looked at the Constitution since maybe high school, which was like 7 years ago.
Until yesterday, I hadn't seen all 27 of the amendments, and I guess when I was in grade school, there weren't that many. So when I took a civics class, we didn't have all of these.
I think everyone knows the first one, and then after that, it kind of, you kind of like, oh yeah, I didn't know that was an amendment. And seeing the dates on here when they were established is really interesting too. So
I used to challenge my students. I would say, okay, name one thing in your life that the government, and thereby by extension, the Constitution, does not impact or affect in some way in your daily life. Just name one thing.
I'd like to know how many high schools still have government classes in their senior year. And I think that's so important.
Well, I think the Constitution, we don't think about it, but I think it's extremely important in our daily lives. There are a lot of rights that we don't even understand as rights because they're just part of being an American. I think lately, because the Constitution isn't really taught in school anymore, people don't understand how important those rights are.
History, government, the social sciences, very often at the elementary school level, it's put way down the bottom of the priority scale. It's something that's, hey, we'll teach maybe at 2 o'clock, maybe at 2:30 after all the more important stuff is over with. Yep, and that's a shame.
It would be hard to say on a daily basis, but I firmly believe that it gives us the freedoms to go about and live our daily lives. Without it, we would be in difficulty.
Obviously, our rights to vote and everybody else's, everything it's in the Constitution. And so it's very important.
This is a republic. It's not perfect, but it's the best thing we have, and we need to work at it.